Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show, Red Pill Edition. My name is Leon Jones. In today's commentary, I'm going to talk about African American males, on how many of us need to escape the matriarchal mindset. So, tonight's video topic is black males need to escape from the matriarchal mindset. Now, the reason why I am talking about this topic is because when it comes to any type of movement, the movement, whether it's SYSPM, civil rights, our version of Red Pill, our version of MGTOW, many of us basically have movements and philosophies that put women on a pedestal or pedestalize women. The problem with that is, when it comes to African American men, when we put women on a pedestal, and I'm not talking about all women, I'm talking about the modern day women, who are very narcissistic, very childish, and they have a feminist mindset, whether they go to church, whether they have a job, whether they're educated. The modern day woman does not deserve our protection. But too many African American men call them queens, divas. They basically take the matriarchal mindset and worship these women, whether they're whores, whether they're single mothers, regardless. But here's the problem with the African American men. Many of us do not understand the system. You see, one thing I can tell you about white men, when white men conquered black men in the past, they studied us. And once they knew every move and other secrets, they conquered us. So what they did, in order to gain power from us, they took what we gave them and used it against us. See, as African American men, we don't do that. What we do is worship other races. And I know when it comes to interracial dating, you see, the black women in the swirling movement, that really doesn't work for them because they're still black. Well, the same thing when it comes to African American men. But again, African American men put women on a pedestal no matter what race they are. In fact, we define ourselves as men based on how much pussy we get. But here's a problem with that. When we can't control our dicks, or we don't have discipline, we create babies that we don't want. We become irresponsible because the women who we lay down with, we didn't want to wife up. We just wanted a nut. But we don't think about what we're doing when we're fucking that woman. But at the end of the day, when it comes to us as black men, all we do is worship women. We talk about the fat ass, the big titties. We talk about everything but competing. And one thing that African American men don't know how to do is compete. You see, other races of men, they work with each other. And they're even coming into the black community, taking money from us, whether it's the Koreans, the Egyptians, the Middle Easterns. And what are other races doing with that money? They're building their own communities. And they're building their own communities because the men are the heads. Now, I'm not saying they're women, because if any woman is Americanized, there is a chance that she has picked up the feminist mindset. And see, African American men think they can run over to another race of women and get better treatment. They're not going to get better treatment, because they can go get a white woman, they can go get a Latina woman, and you have a number of ghetto Latina women out there who sound like ghetto black women. You have a number of downtrodden white women who sound like ghetto black women. And with other races of women, you're going to have to fit into their culture. It's not going to be about the African American culture. But when it comes to African American men, what we don't do is we don't run for office. When it comes to jobs, we're not going for management positions. When it comes to careers, we're not picking careers like I always discuss on my other channel, The Mind of STEM. We're going into religion and philosophy. We're trying to be ordained ministers. We're trying to be some motivational speakers. The problem with that is they don't make any money. And when it comes to the African American male, because many of them were brought up in a matriarchal mindset, they do not know how to conduct business with other males. This is why we can't compete with other races. And when we can't compete with other races of men, we don't have any economy. We don't gain power. And the only way you gain power is you have to understand the system. And what we as African American men should be doing is understand how the white man runs the system. And once we understand the system, then we can gain power. And if you're a red pill or MGTOW man, okay, I understand that when it comes to red pill, we want to deal with the truth. And when it comes to MGTOW, you want to go your own way. And you should go your own way, because going your own way, the true MGTOW, it's about getting yourself established. You're not putting women on a pedestal. Again, I have never heard MGTOWs say they hated women. They're just anti-feminist. And I've never heard red pill men say they hate women at all. They're just anti-feminist. But when it comes to black men, many black men hide under red pill and MGTOW, because many black men are really purple pill. They are red pill or MGTOW at the surface, but beneath the surface, they're still blue pill, because in their minds, they worship women. If we stop spending all of our money on females and start to invest in our own infrastructure, we can become competitive with other races, and then we don't have to scream white supremacy. Also, black men, we got to learn to run for office at the local level. We have to get into the courtrooms and become judges. We have to sit on juries. We can't convict everybody for something senseless like non-payment of child support. See, more of us sat on the judges' benches, I think a lot of this would go away. A lot of this domestic violence, the bullshit charges, the bullshit rape charges, they would all go away. But what we are looked at, or when we're looked at as African American men, we're always looked at regarding the fuck shit we do, like dealing drugs, pimping hoes. Well, when we have some education, we're not looked at as being educated. And when something happens to black men, we're all categorized. In other words, we're all put under the same umbrella. So if Pookie Ray Ray does something, and I don't even know the Pookie and Ray Ray, people like David Carroll, Aqueezy 100, me, Tommy Sotomayor, because we're all black. We're all the same. We're all looked at as the Pookies and Ray Rays. And when other races look at us, they think we're barbarians because some of us act like barbarians. Many African American men, they don't read. We have opinions, but our opinions are based on emotion. And when it comes to African American men, we tend to believe in the Christian faith. Religion is what messed a lot of black people up, because that religion that we have, that's that white man's religion. We were indoctrinated. See, religion was used to control the masses. And at the end of the day, we as African American people, we just don't read. We're intellectually lazy. We don't understand politics. I don't see African American men forming any lobbyist groups, because if you're going to get something passed on a political level, you have to have a lobbyist group. You have to have an issue. You have to know how to organize and finance that issue. We don't know any of that. We have to create a media that deals with African American people, so the stereotypes about us do not have to go outside of us. See, right now, when a white man controls the media, they say what they want about us, even if it's not true, because white men, they've cheated. They've been irresponsible. But they know how to cover themselves up. Why? Because they're the dominant society who created the system for them. And see, all other races are patriarchal. Patriarchies work. I know a number of women do not want to be under a patriarchy, but they're safer under a patriarchy. And being under a patriarchy does not mean you are a slave. See, African American men, they were raised under a matriarchy. And when you're raised under women, you tend to be a little bit more weaker. You tend to be less competitive. You tend to be more intrinsic. You start thinking magical, angels, white Jesus. Why? Because your mommies, your aunts, your grandmothers, who had no men in their lives, taught you that if you believe in God, something magical is going to happen. There's nothing wrong with believing in God. But what you got to do is understand the system. And black men just don't understand the system. You see, as black men, we have a system that you can create your own businesses. See, black men believe in redistribution of wealth. They don't believe in capitalism. And many of the educated black men, they'll go get a degree and they'll work for white men, and they think they've made it. They haven't made it. And when it comes to black business, too many of us black men, we envy one another. We're jealous of one another. And we won't support one another. Why? Because many of us have egos. We do not stick together. When I look at all of these hangouts, I'm glad they got rid of Google Hangouts. Black men are extremely emotional. They do not know how to debate. They do not know how to have a conversation. This is why I don't get on any other person's platform. We're not genuine to each other. We're calling each other bitch ass niggas. Fuck niggas. We sound like a bunch of animals. We don't care about one another. You got black men doxing one another, calling each other's jobs, threatening to go shoot each other. That's nigga shit. But many of us don't care. Why? Because many black men were raised under matriarchy. and matriarchy has failed black men. This is why a number of black men are switch hitters. Many black men are hypersexualized. But when I hear a number of black men on YouTube, now there are a few of them, but many of them, they don't talk about politics. They don't talk about economics. They don't talk about STEM. They don't talk about real estate. I know, shout out to Brother Ramil, he does. Many of us talk about getting women. And like I said, I'm not downing anybody's philosophy or movement, but where I have a problem with any philosophy that a black man has, it seems to me that it surrounds itself around women. And when Ramil read those 15 articles under SYSBM, I didn't hear anything about politics. I didn't hear anything about capitalism. I didn't hear anything about STEM. I didn't hear anything about black men competing. And we need to compete on a collective level, because as an individual, we're not going to be able to make a lot of money. We can be self-employed, but at the end of the day, we are not only doing the work, but we're trying to manage how we're going to get the work done. And if we get a contract, we could just overflow ourselves with work, and two things are going to happen. We're going to have to give some of that work up, and if we do that work that we have, we're not going to do a good job. But as African American men, we got to be truthful about ourselves. Yes, we can call the women out all day, but we got to look at ourselves. Many of us have psychological problems. Many of us have been molested. Many of us worship our mothers too much, our sisters too much. But many of us, we don't know how to deal with other men. So if we can't deal with each other, how are we going to go out there and compete with the Caucasian man, the Asian man, the Latino man? And when it comes to African American men, doesn't matter if you're 20 or 50. Most of us are very emotional when it comes to thinking. Many of us, just like African American women, vote Democrat. But the problem is, we're hypocrites when we vote Democrat, because when you vote Democrat as an African American male, you're voting for feminism, LGBTQ, you're voting for abortion, you're voting for socialism, communism, a tyrannical government, you're voting for racism, because those white liberals are very racist people. And when they use identity politics over and over and over and over again, they're basically saying that they're racist, but they're trying to get you to believe that the Republicans are the racist people. No. The Democrats are your racist people, and they've always been racist. You had guys like J. William Fulbright, George Wallace. These are the guys you were supporting when you voted Democrat. Heck, you had the he didn't want the Civil Rights Act passed until 1964 was passed. He was a congressman before he was president. Lyndon B. Johnson. He was a congressman. And did you know when Dwight D. Eisenhower was president, Dwight D. Eisenhower wanted the civil rights passed. Congressman Lyndon B. Johnson didn't. It didn't happen until 1964. But see, a lot of blacks don't read. They believe the hype that they were told. They believe the textbooks. And that's another thing, this education. This education is not good for black men, because it just teaches you that we're slaves. Certainly, when it comes to the past was bad. But see, I don't dwell on the past. I learn from it. I learn how to be better. Look at the Jewish people. Okay, they went through the Holocaust. And they went through the Holocaust much later than slavery. I mean, you're dealing in World War II, that's when the Holocaust took place. The Jews are making it. Look at the Indians. Look what happened to them. Some of them were slaves. The Indian women were raped, but the Indians fought. And when black men come under matriarchy, guess what they don't know how to do? They don't know how to fight. They don't have killer instinct. They believe everything that a woman says. They're on their knees for women. They're trying to get women to like them. That's not how it works. African American men should be working as a collective, should build communities. You should not wait for women. And when you build a community, you build it for yourself. You don't build it for them. You build it for yourself. Because as men, we should be, as African American men, we should be competing against other men. We should have an economy. And when we don't have an economy, we don't have power. You know what the white man did? The white man took his power. Well, to me, black men need to learn how to take power. We don't take power. We allow ourselves to be enslaved. And then we try to go to another race for our sovereignty. It's not going to work. And when it comes to being African American men, and this is not all African American men, but it is a number of them. Because I see many of us on social media, and I see how dysfunctional we are. Many of us, when it comes to being a man, we think getting all the pussy makes you a man. No, doesn't make you a man. Pussy can be a risk. And with pussy, you don't know who these women slept with. You have women sleeping with other women. You have women sleeping with men who slept with other women. You have women sleeping with men who were in jail. You have women sleeping with men who sleep with other men. So the cycle goes on and on and on and on. And at the end of the day, when it comes to the black male, many of us, we don't understand anything about the system. And as African American men, when it comes to working a 9 to 5, we don't do anything to change the landscape. Many of us have gotten comfortable where we are. While other races of men out there are getting the cake, we're getting the crumbs. We're waiting on somebody else to give us something when we could be creating it ourselves. Too many of us are complacent. Again, African American men, we need to learn how white folks operate. And once we integrate into the system, and I'm not saying integrate into the system so we can eat at the same restaurants, use the same bathrooms, and work the same jobs with them. Because see, white folks really didn't want integration. Why? I mean, they wanted integration. Why? So they can enslave us. And they've done a good job of doing it. Because many African American men, and of course you have the women, but this video is about the men, we worship other races. We want to be like other races, but we can't be like other races. This is why I say whether you're a black man or a black woman, you can date who you want. But if you go to that other race, particularly if you're a black man, don't tell me that those women aren't feminists. Those women aren't misandrists. Those women won't screw you over, because they'll screw you over in a heartbeat. And they expect more. But when it comes to African American men, we just don't think with the concept of critical thinking. We think with emotions. Many of us were taught by our mothers that we got to go to church, believe in a white Jesus, believe in nuts and berries, magic. But your mothers didn't teach you how to compete, because the mothers didn't want to see you compete. Now, what the mothers did, they taught their daughters how to compete. And this is why the daughters have become academically superior to the sons. I said academically. I didn't say smarter. But African American men, they think just like women. They yell. They call each other names. They shame each other. They don't represent men. They represent females in a male's body. Now, this is not all men, but too many of us, we don't talk about competing. We envy one another. We will come at each other before we go at another race of men. Again, when it comes to power, you got to take power. We don't take power. We should take power. But then our mommies that we worship so much, and a lot of us who come from, I didn't come from a matriarchal household, but a number of men who come from a matriarchal household, they seem to put women on a pedestal. They take women out on dates. They cater to women, even if that woman doesn't cater to them. And you have a number of African American men, they're trying to do everything in their power to get a woman to like them. That's not going to happen. She either likes you or she doesn't like you. Too many of us spend our time chasing women instead of chasing economics, chasing capital, becoming STEM majors, real estate, becoming leaders, becoming politicians. And black men, yeah, the ones who are politicians, they tend to go over to the Democratic side and believe everything that the Democrats believe instead of having their own mind. Black men need to go Republican or conservative, because the Democratic Party isn't going to do anything for black men. Now, I'm not saying the Republican Party is going to do anything for black men, but at least with the conservative mindset, and conservative or being conservative is not a political party. It's just a mindset. But a lot of brothers, they don't want to read. You have David Carroll. He told brothers where to go for sources many times. They refuse to do so. In fact, here on YouTube, black men will support black women's channels, but they won't support black men's channels. And at the end of the day, we don't want to work as a collective, but we can't be individuals when it comes to economics, because that's not smart work. If you're going to build a business, you got to build a business with an organization. But again, when it comes to African American men, their real definition of an alpha male is based on how much pussy they get. But pussy doesn't make any money. In fact, you spend more money chasing pussy. You spend less money getting no pussy. And remember something, all pussy is not good pussy. And when you knock one of these women up because you want that pussy so bad, it's going to cost you $285,000 plus over the next 18 years. And a woman that you lay down with she's going to try to ruin your life. And see, if we had more brothers in the criminal justice system, none of these sisters wouldn't be taking you to jail for BS. But again, when it comes to African American men, they've been raised in a matriarchal environment. This is why they don't know how to engage in conversation with other men. And at the end of the day, you have a number of African American men who hide under red pill and MGTOW because it sounds good, but they're not real red pill or MGTOW men because they really want to be on a plantation, because African American man's mind is about worshiping and getting women and getting those women to like him. If you don't believe me, you look at the Instagrams. Many African American men are simps. They're thirsty. But it's funny how African American men can thirst for women, but they can't thirst for education. They can't thirst for economics. They can't thirst for politics. They can't thirst for competing with other races. And even the educated men, they're lame. They're not aggressive. Number of educated men, they're comfortable working at a corporation, but a corporation only gives you crumbs. When you are an educated African American male, you should be getting money. You should have businesses. You should employ other black folks. But again, we believe that when we have an education, we're better than somebody who doesn't have an education. But at the end of the day, when it comes to black men are always going to be at the bottom because we have a matriarchal mindset. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And please subscribe to my newer channel, The Mind of STEM, where I'm giving you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. You can catch me on Facebook and Twitter. And catch my Blog Talk radio show. I have it every weekend. But at the end of the day, be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Thank you for listening to this video. My name is Leon Jones. You have a wonderful and blessed evening. God bless you. I'm out.